You're listening to She Speaks, a Let Her Speak podcast that celebrates women's fearlessness, resiliency, and readiness to change the world. Welcome back to the She Speaks podcast. I'm Catherine Porth, your host and the founder of Let Her Speak. I think it's safe to say that we all went through personal struggles over the course of the pandemic. Some of us saw our lives and livelihoods take off in ways we couldn't imagine, and we were completely unprepared for the exhaustion and burnout that came with it. My dear friend and incredible portrait photographer, Jasmine Newton, experienced just that. The interview you're about to hear was recorded in April of 2021 when Jasmine was in the throes of a major boom for her business. While I released a lot of the video interviews I captured during this time on Let Her Speak's YouTube channel, this is one I held back intentionally. You see, neither Jasmine nor I knew at the time of this recording, but a few months later, she would hit one of the toughest periods for her business and herself. I decided to wait to release this episode until Jasmine had the opportunity to work through this period and was open to talking about it, which is exactly what we did in the next episode. But first, let's travel back to April 2021 with Jasmine Newton, owner of Javon Renee Portraits. Okay, all right, so we're recording. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our latest episode of the She Speaks series from Let Her Speak. I'm Catherine Porth, the founder of Let Her Speak. And today I have a woman who is a friend, but also a colleague in women in entrepreneurship. Her name is Jasmine Newton, and she is the founder of Javon Renee Portraits, which if you need fantastic photographs taken of yourself and you're in the greater Knoxville area, highly recommend working with Jasmine. And I'm so excited to have you with us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So the first thing I would love for people to hear about your story and about your journey is how you got to this place of owning your own portrait studio and what has that journey been? Because I know it hasn't been linear by any means for you.
So basically, how did I get here?
Yeah.
So that's the answer that's going to take some time. So it was never something that I planned to do from childhood or anything. I had a long list of things that I essentially wanted to do with myself, but the main thing was to be a singer and an actress. That's what I wanted to do. But once I became a mom, music kind of went out the window for me. I just no longer had that much of an interest in it anymore. I wanted to be able to be home with my family instead of traveling, chasing studios and entertainment and all that. As far as acting, I mean, maybe, but it also was just one of those things that those interests kind of took a back burner, kind of died down. So I was mainly just doing customer service, working customer service jobs. That's all I've ever done. That's what I have on my resume is customer service, customer service, customer service. So I was working for a security alarm company, and I ended up getting fired. I had been there for, I believe, almost 7 years, and I ended up getting fired. I had never gotten fired from a job before, and it was frustrating. And I had a moment where I was just like, kind of just in my own little puddle, like, what am I going to do now? Because I didn't want to go into customer service. Like in my heart, I knew I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to find another entry level position again. I was always good enough to train the supervisor, but never good enough to be the supervisor. And it was just like that everywhere I went, no matter what job I had. So I was really, really getting sick of that cycle. And so a couple of my friends were just like, well, you have a camera. Why don't you start a photography business? And I laughed at them because I thought they were totally crazy. The camera that I had, I used to make YouTube videos. So the only thing that I knew how to do with that camera was press the record button. I didn't know how to take pictures with it. And I also was just like, I've never been to college. I have high school education. I don't know how to start a business. They teach that type of stuff in college. I don't know how to do any of that. I don't know how to use a camera. I don't know the first thing about photography. That's silly. And of course, I had time to think about it and was like, well, maybe, maybe I should see if I can, work a camera. So it was April 2015 that I got fired, and it was May 2015 I spent learning how to use my camera, taking photos for free, and then June 2015 is when I got my business license to start, at that time, what was called J-Way Photography. And, when my husband would ask me, what do you plan on doing with your business? And I was just like, oh, I can just put on Facebook that I take pictures and people will come running and it'll be easy. And no, no, it's a lot more to it than that. So that journey of having to learn how to market myself, having to learn how to see my self-worth, how to learn how to create a client experience and believing in that client experience. That's what I've spent the last almost 6 years doing, is tweaking all of those different things and actually becoming what is now Javon Renee Portraits today.
So through that learning experience then of thinking, oh, this could be easy, I can just put it out there and people will come. If you build it, they will come. But what were, did you have like mentors, or did you attend classes, or, collect a ton of resources? I mean, what was it that really, really helped you to tweak and mold yourself into who you are now?
So there were three main things in the beginning that really, really helped me get out of that, oh, it'll be easy, that very naive, girl, you don't know what you're doing type of stage. And luckily, I found those things really, really early in the process instead of finding them years in. So the first one was I met my business coach, Damon Rawls. I met him in a networking meeting, and for some reason, he just saw something in me and just asked me, hey, we could work together. You do photos for me. I do some business coaching for you. And it was really, really, he laid down the foundation, the basic business understanding for me. So I owe him a huge debt for that. The second big thing was another photographer here, very popular, Sarai Taylor Roman. She has Taylor Roman Portraits, and she met me at a networking. It was a networking thing, and for some reason, I guess she saw something in me. Usually, when I would speak with other photographers, once they found out I was a photographer, the conversation would kind of end there. Like, okay, you're another photographer. All right, I can't sell you my photography. Moving on. Like, that's usually how it was. But she just kept talking to me, kept getting to know me. And then she was like, we should do lunch. So we did. And it was like a total different Sarai than what I met at the networking. At the networking, I was like, hi, how you doing? I do photo shoots. This is what I do. Oh, your work is nice. It was that type of thing. And then at the lunch, it was like, okay, how do you want your business to be? How much do you want your average sale to be? How much money do you want to make a year? And it was like serious mentor mode. So she ended up becoming my mentor, which was great. And then the third biggest thing was she also told me about Sue Bryce Education, SueBryceEducation.com. I learned so much from that education platform, everything from self-worth to pricing to client experience to how to pose, how to work with natural light. I mean, there's so much that I learned that I use now. So between those three things, I would say they were very pivotal in the beginning stages for me.
And it sounds like, almost serendipitous, but at the same time, not necessarily, because I think one of the things that sometimes we forget about is the power of just showing up somewhere. And then that sometimes, for lack of a better term, magic can happen when you just meet other people and you never know who that next right connection is going to be. Because I know, like, off of this camera, like, we've talked about the power of just meeting people and coming from a place of just genuinely wanting to meet people, not trying to push for referrals or push for business, but just getting to know each other.
Right.
So it seems like too, like you've had that instinct since the very beginning of just being open to meeting people and going places and showing up and telling people what you're trying to do.
Well, I'm a Gemini, so I'm a little bit of a motor mouth anyway. I can meet and talk to anybody, any personality. I just automatically just kind of, I'm like a chameleon. I can fit into a lot of different situations and scenarios and personalities. Um, for me, it wasn't exactly scary to go networking. What was scary was trying to get people to feel like I was worth paying money to give them pictures. That was what was hard for me to get past. I had to get myself worth. I had to really work on that. And it's funny because, you know, you're thinking, okay, this is about business. I'm running a business, but there are so many ways where my business has actually helped me grow as a woman, as a person, and figuring out who I am myself is very personal as well. But networking and meeting people and just kind of, feeling out the community around you and understanding that whole community over competition, that's always just felt like something that is just naturally what I like. You know, I wouldn't call myself an extrovert, but I wouldn't call myself an introvert. I'm somewhere in the middle, depending on the day. So meeting people was always easy. I like making genuine connections. I like having a lot of people that I can talk to or meet or bounce ideas off of. I like having a tribe. You know, that's something that I've always wanted to aspire to having, is that good tribe where when you're going through something good or bad, you're like, yo, let me call so-and-so and see, am I tripping? You know, like, it's really nice to have that tribe, especially in the early days. Sarai and Damon and my best friend Coy, I mean, they really ended up being a really awesome tribe for me.
So going back a little bit to one of the biggest barriers for you was this feeling of imposterism, of knowing how much to your worth is and what to charge people and the value that you bring for them. What were some of the biggest takeaways and the biggest things that you've learned to change as far as like your mindset around that, but also like actions that you do around that, or things that you tell yourself or things that you say out loud, that has helped with that? Because I know, over 3/4 of people have feelings of imposterism. So it's extremely common, but we all, I feel like, deal with it in a little bit different way.
So I had to really remember who I come from. That's one thing. That's one thing that's huge for me. I got to remember who I come from. For me, I don't consider myself a religious person. I consider myself a spiritual person. I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in God. So my thought process around that is, why would I think that this higher power, this being, this awesome being, took the time to create me with specific gifts, specific personality? There's never going to be anybody like me ever again. I was born specifically at this time with these gifts for a specific reason. That in itself says important. That in itself says that I have a purpose. That in itself says that I'm special in some type of intricate way. That only my fingerprint, only my gifts, only me is needed for something particular at this point of time, right? So why would I have those things? And then I come down here, I get sent down here to earth, and then all of a sudden decide that I'm not enough. That makes no sense. So I had to remember where I come from. I got somebody that took time to make me, artfully make me. And I got something to do down here. The trick is figuring out what that is. and pouring yourself into it openly, loving yourself as you do it tremendously, and being open to the possibilities, not putting so many limitations on yourself and not allowing others to project their limitations onto you. Um, I think another thing that I have that's helped me through that, besides remembering where I come from, there's this poem called The Guest House. It always sits right next to my desk. And it's by Rumi. And I love that poem. So whenever I get in my feelings, whenever something is hard for me, I look at that poem, or I think of that poem if I'm not in front of it, because I've read it so much, I almost have it in my head. And I literally try to think about the feelings that I'm feeling. Okay, what am I feeling? Where does the root come from? Right? And what is the truth? So if I'm sitting here and I'm saying, I just don't feel like I'm good enough for this. Is that the truth though? Like, why do you feel like you're not good enough? Where did you get that thought from? Who told you that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what's the root? And if someone told me that, were they right? Consider the source. Was it them projecting their stuff? And what's the actual truth? And you also have to think, with whatever situation, right? Think of all the things that could happen. Can you deal with the worst outcome? If you can deal with the worst outcome and move past your fear, maybe it's worth trying. I had a decision that I had to make a few weeks ago, and oh man, I was agonizing over the decision because it was something where, I had to spend some money, and I was like, I really want to spend this money. Is it worth it? Am I making a good decision for my business? And what if that? And, that whole insecurity of, can I make a good decision for my business? Hello, I've been in business for almost 6 years. Boomed through COVID, through a whole pandemic. My business was booming. Why all of a sudden I don't trust myself to make a good decision now? Like, what's going on with you, Jasmine? So, so I had to just say, okay, what's the worst case scenario? I lose some money. Will I be okay if I lose that money? Yeah. I mean, it'll suck, but I'll still be okay. My family's okay. Well, let's run it. Let's go ahead and do it. It's like, you have to think about that. We are so scared to take steps because we don't want to F it up. And sometimes you got to get comfortable with effing some things up. Sometimes you got to be okay with that and realize that we're not perfect. The one way that you know that you're trying is if you make some mistakes along the way. That's something my 10-year-old son told me. He was actually 8 when he told me that. That's how you know you're trying. You make some mistakes. I have that in my head all the time. If my 8-year-old can tell me that, I'm 35. So just like I said, just remembering where I come from, really trying to deal with my feelings at the root and tell myself the truth, and just trying to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's how I deal with any imposter syndrome or any thoughts of maybe I'm not doing enough.
I really like this dialogue that you have with yourself all the time, because I feel like I do the exact same thing where I'm always having conversations with myself. I have these like two different sides of Catherine. I have the Catherine who's down on herself, and then I have the Catherine who's like the best friend of the other Catherine. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you've gotten this far. What in the world? Where did this come from? This didn't come from me. This came from something else. So where did that come from? And I think you're absolutely right with, the things that external to us that are sometimes being said to us that we take them as truths when really they're just projections that other person's insecurities or the other person's experiences, that it's not necessarily that it's fact or truth. It says more about them and their projection onto you than really truly the truth of who you are and what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now that you've talked a little bit about this, these special skills that you have and all of these elements that came together and the spark that happened that created Jasmine, mm-hmm. What are some of those elements that you weaved and realized about yourself that pulled you into doing portraiture specifically?
You know what? That's a really good question. I have a lot of little things that I pulled from different jobs that I've had over time. Like I said, customer service is one of them. I know customer service like the back of my hand. I can deal with the best attitudes to some of the worst attitudes. Notice I said some of the worst attitudes. There are some attitudes I'm gonna come up out of character, but I'm really good at fixing situations. I'm really good at de-escalating things if things get escalated. I'm really good at like I said earlier, I'm a chameleon. I can pretty much match any situation. If the situation is really chill, really laid back, I can match it. If something is really exciting and I can pretty much match it. I also used to be a radio DJ. I used to sing. I mean, there's so many things that I used to do, and a lot of those gifts pretty much brings me to the fact that, first of all, I'm a personality. I can get along with anybody, and I love to create. I can create music. I can create drawings, poetry. I just love to create, and I love showing someone how important they are if they don't already know it. Or I like reintroducing someone to how important they are. You have women, for some reason, we have these different stages in our lives that affect us so much where we forget ourselves, we get lost in something, or we forget how amazing we are. We put ourselves so much into our families and our marriages and our kids, whatever it is that we put ourselves into, even our businesses, where sometimes the core of us gets lost. And we put that core, I'm gonna refer to the core as her. We put her on the back burner, and we're just in that nurturing, that working, that growing, that raising, that loving. We're in that. But she's over there like, what I need some nurturing too. I need some love. I guess I'm gonna just sit. Are we gonna be ready to give me some nurturing in like maybe 2 years or so? Maybe 2, maybe 5. Okay. And we just kind of forget about her on the back burner. So what I love about what I do is I love doing branding photos and working with people who need, branding headshots for their business and things like that. And that's great. I love creating legacy portraits. I love creating portraits that people can be reminded, hey, pick her up and let's figure out what she loves. Yes, you want to come in and get photos of your kids? Okay, great. You need to be in the photos with your kids. Oh, no, not me. Why not? Because when you're gone, your kids are going to be looking for the photo because you were that important to them. You may have not have felt that important to yourself, but they have been thinking about you at your core ever since you pushed them out. You know what I mean? We have to remember who we are at our core. We have to remember how amazing we are. We have to remember that we, each and every one of us, and it actually gets overwhelming when I really sit and think about it. You think about all the people walking around on this rock spinning around the sun. We each have something unique. Think about how many different brands of unique we got walking around planet Earth right now. And we each have something special. So I just got overwhelmed thinking about it. I told you, so I was thinking about it. But to know that out of all of these people, and that's just the human race that we know on Earth, we don't know what's going on in other galaxies. But out of all of those people, out of all of these races, these countries, these cities, you got something special still. How many people on this earth? You got something still that's unique. And you think that's not worth celebrating? You think, oh, I can't do it. Why? Girl, why? You know, that I feel like when it comes to me, that's a skill. When I have that, that's something that's in the forefront of my mind all the time. So that's a skill, showing people that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that reminded me of a talk that I gave recently about why women needed to share their stories was very central to exactly what you were saying. And part of my argument was, you're not necessarily, I think a lot of times what happens when a woman's asked to share her story is that she immediately starts thinking about like the behemoth women out there that like everybody knows them and they've written tons of books about their stories, and you start thinking, oh, I need to be to that level before somebody will care about my story and care about me and care about my unique pieces of myself. But when I was in that room with the women I was speaking with, and I asked them, name a memorable story, and I didn't say anything else, every single one of them, their memorable story was tied to their family. And it was tied to somebody that they were blood related to, whether it was their parents or their grandparents or their children, but it had to do with the family. It didn't have to do with these larger than life characters that have lived throughout history of, human civilization. And I think it's the exact same thing with portraiture too, of the family is what we think of when we're thinking about very deeply entrenched memories and legacies and things like that. And that's why you need to show up in your own portraits. It's not necessarily to think you're you're going to be on display in like the National Portrait Museum. It's for the people that are with you and in your family, that they want to see that and they want to hear those stories and they want to see you. I think they're very much similar to themselves, and they're both things that, for the most part, a lot of us shy away from, thinking that we're not special enough. Which, to say it out loud, sounds ridiculous, but a lot of times we're thinking it quietly in the back of our minds.
There was something I read a couple of years ago that said, everything that you say negative about yourself, look at a picture of you from when you were 5, 6, 7 years old and say that to them. And you're like, oh, that is below the belt. Like, that's what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. When you think these things, when you think I'm not enough, I can't do this, I'm just not smart enough, I'm just not good enough, you're saying that to the little girl in you who's aspired to grow. Like, when you think about yourself, think about when you were younger and all the times you thought, when I grow up. Well, girl, you're grown now. This is it. You're grown. You're here. So why do you think that you're not important? You're not important all of a sudden. What's that little girl gonna feel?
Exactly. That's it's so. When you stop and somebody makes you think about it, it's when we're quietly alone by ourselves that all of these things creep in, and we have to remind ourselves, maybe we just all of us need to keep a picture of like our younger self, like by us at all times. And every time that's creeping in, we look at that picture and we start talking to that person that was in that picture. Yeah. Cause
another problem is that we let the noise get to us.
Mm-hmm.
By noise, I mean society, what society says, what other people say, what your mom say, what your parents say, what your spouses say. We let everybody else's opinions come in and cloud those gifts, or cloud that imagination that we once had. I mean, when you were 6 or 7, did you really think about what society had to say? You were 6 or 7, you didn't barely even know what society was. You didn't have anybody in your ear too much yet. to really start breaking down what you could imagine for yourself. So I basically try to dare myself a lot to be authentically me. And that's hard because you still have that, oh, are they gonna like that though? Because you know what, Jasmine, you being authentically you, sometimes that's really authentic. Like I feel like sometimes I have to be careful. But the more and more that I push myself to just be authentically me and not worry about the noise, the more and more I'm finding that people are attracted to my brand or attracted to me as a person. The more people will go, you know what, you're actually pretty cool. And when you tap into that and finally just, you know what, it's okay to be authentically me. This is how I was built. I'm supposed to be this way. And whoever's not for me, that's okay.
Yeah. Do you think that this noise that is around us at all times, do you think, since both of us were, when we were 6 or 7, because we're about the same age, the AOL was like just barely out the gate at that point. So like email was still kind of new. And now we're to this point where we're constantly surrounded by devices. We're constantly surrounded by, whether it's social media or apps or what have you. Do you feel like that noise is much, much louder than, maybe our parents at our age at that point in time?
It can be, but it's also what you make it. Everything that we put in those platforms is coming from us. Like you have, as much as people have these opinions about social media and how it's making us feel like this or it's making us feel like that, or it's good or it's bad. Here's the thing. Social media is whatever we make it to be. Because literally every piece of content that goes into social media comes from us. It's coming from us. Facebook just set up the platform. They set up the software. They set up, the place where you can put the thing. But it's us inserting the opinion, the good, the negative, the creative. It's us putting those in there. So just like you can put whatever you want in there, you can also take out what you want. For example, on my Instagram, I purposely curate my Instagram to only follow people or things that inspire me. So when I go through my Instagram, I'm not seeing politics. I'm not seeing, the bad, ugly stuff, the stuff that makes you feel insecure about your body and things like that. I purposely follow interior decorating, other photography, landscapes, beautiful things that just make me go, oh man, I need to figure out how to put that into my work, or I need to figure out I want to do that one day. I want to travel there one day. I purposely have curated my feed, and when I look at it, I'm inspired, I'm uplifted. I purposely follow places that give good quotes. You know what I mean? But if you're going to follow trash, you're going to get trash. You know what I mean? You have to be aware of that when it comes to these social media platforms or TV or whatever else people feel is negative nowadays. It's up to everybody. Everybody has the power to turn it off or unfollow or delete or whatever. You get in it what you put in it.
Yep. I totally agree. I'm the same way with following. I am very selective and personally what I'm following and things like that. In general, I'm not really a social media person anyways. I have to be, but for what I do, but in general, I'm more of I like to meet people one-on-one and I love to talk to them and everything. And everybody's so lovely when you're talking and having a conversation with them. And you learn just so much more than, the highlight reels, which is always what I look at social media as the highlight reel. But the really fun stuff is when you actually have a conversation with someone.
Right. You can have that highlight reel, but you challenge yourself to have a coffee with a certain amount of people a month. I did that all 2019. 2019, it was like I challenged myself to have a coffee with 5 people. And you get a little more than just a highlight reel. You can't depend on social media to give you more. Obviously, people are posting what they want people to see. But you have to understand that that's the whole purpose of it. Like, you can't push for Facebook or Instagram or anything else, Twitter or otherwise, to just be like, oh, this should be better because it's making our people this and it's making our people that. And it's just like, dude, like, if you feel that way, you are in complete control of what you have, and you are in complete control of how often you actually meet with people face to face. I mean, aside from being locked down in COVID, but you know, it's for some reason we think that we don't have the power to do something, and we actually do.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I think a lot of sometimes you forget that my mantra is always control your controllables, but sometimes it's difficult to remember what your controllables are. And you get tied into this like, well, the algorithm's showing me all these things. And it's like, well, the algorithm is a computer code. And the computer code is taking an input and giving an output. So what is the input? And you have control over that input. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it is showing you the output that corresponds with your input. Yeah. And we forget, I think sometimes we kind of forget about that. And we think that it's some other thing that's happening has nothing to do with us.
It's like the algorithm of our bodies, if you can look at it like that. When someone complains about, oh my God, I'm feeling like this, and oh my God, my cheeks are getting bigger, and da-da-da. Well, what are you inputting? Because that's exactly what your body is outputting. So let's look at what you're doing. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking water? Are you exercising? Are you being around positive things or people? So whatever you're giving or putting in or exposing your body to, your body's algorithm is going to take that and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. So we're very much in control. It's just a matter of if you're going to actually take control of it. Yeah. And then the things that we can't take control of, those are obviously things that I just try not to worry about because I can't control it.
Exactly. Yeah. That is a great philosophy in life in general. I feel like you could do a whole series of portraits of that, of like input, output and stuff. That would be really cool.
That would be interesting. I gotta think about that.
So going back to your portraits, and because you know what you bring into portraiture is much deeper and much more meaningful than I think what some people think when they're like, oh, I just need to go get some pictures taken of myself. So I mean, talk a little bit about what has been some of your most favorite experiences of bringing people through this journey of discovering or rediscovering who they are.
Like my favorite session?
Or just, you know, a general experience, maybe if it's been consistent with like a few different photo shoots.
My favorite part of what I do really is when people see their photos, because that's a culmination of all the work that we have both put in, and just watching their expression. And most times I get the whole, oh my God, is that me? That's not me. Is that me? And it's just, it's like this, they can't believe that they look like that. They can't believe, because for some reason we look at celebrities and their pictures and believe that they can look that great, and for some reason we can't. And I'm just like, I don't know about you, but I'm on a good day, I dress up and stuff. Angelina Jolie might have to watch out for me. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. I can pretty much hold it down. That's how I automatically think of myself. So when I have a beautiful portrait taken of me, it's not like, oh, is that me? It's like, I know, that's me. Mm-hmm. Eat your heart out. You know what I mean? But some people, they just have a hard time seeing themselves because they haven't really had the time or they haven't been around the right people that instill that image of themselves in them. And then you have the other responses where it's just kind of, we talked about this earlier, where it's just kind of, they just kind of looking and you're not sure what they think.
She's talking about me, by the way.
When you saw your pictures, you were just like, and I was just like, oh, she hates her pictures. But, I like seeing, I try not to freak out, and I just like seeing where it goes from there. And what do they say about it? Is there something that they notice about themselves that they weren't expecting? Is there something that they're thinking that they want to do next time? There's so many things that you can learn about yourself from a picture. I really love when I take a portrait, and it's not just about how I pose them. It's not just about what they have on, but it's about the feeling. You can tell who they are through that portrait, through their eyes or their facial expressions. There's one portrait that I have. It's one of my favorites. She's breastfeeding, and people always bring up that portrait to me. And it's because not only do you see that she's in this nurturing pose where she's breastfeeding her baby. I mean, that's the obvious. But the look on her face, you can see the resilience, you can see the pain, you can almost see her life story in her eyes. And you want to know more. You want to know more about her. I like taking photos like that. And I like when I show someone themselves in that, and they realize that they are God's fine art.
So what has been your favorite photo of yourself? Do you have a favorite one? Yeah, of you.
I have the photos that I love of myself. Wait a minute, it's gonna take a minute because my favorite portrait of me, I have one where I have two actually. One, I have red hair, and it was when I started getting the short hairstyle that I have now. It was my first time getting that cut. And we put like red weave in my hair, and I'm looking to the side, and the air is like blowing my hair where it looks like a little flip. It's like this kind of rooster kind of cool hair thing. And it just looks so cool on me. I look badass. I love it. And I think that was the time I was celebrating my first year in business. And so that's what that photo shoot was for. And that was a time when I really started thinking to myself, I can actually do this. So you see basically the start of my confidence growing. And then one of my second favorites right now is it's my profile picture. It's I have a wig on. So I got this big hair all over the place, and I have on a tan sweater, and I'm just kind of just smiling in the camera. And that one I actually took myself during COVID when we were in lockdown. So I just set my camera up and took a bunch of pictures and just picked the best ones. And I like that one because I feel like that one really represents that, I'm a fun-loving person, and I want to make a difference. I want people to like me, of course, but it's okay if you don't. And I want to feel like when it's my time to go, I want to feel like I use my gifts and I use my skills to make some sort of ripple, however small, some sort of ripple in this world.
So is there anything, you've been in business for about 6 years now, and it's grown tremendously. There's been a ton of personal and business growth. Is there anything, if you could go back to Jasmine 6 years ago, is there anything that you wish that you could have known, or that you maybe would have done a little bit differently for like anybody who's just starting this journey of realizing that they could actually run a business on their own?
I would have realized, I would have told myself, you don't have to spend your money on that. You don't need that. there was a lot of money wasted. There are things that I bought because I was trying to look professional. And my idea of being professional has definitely changed since those first days in business. I thought that I had to have this certain thing and this certain place or this certain equipment, and you don't. I mean, all I need, if I can only have a few things, all I need is my camera, a nicely lit corner, and a stool. And I can create beautiful portraits just off of that. A corner, a camera, and a stool. But, you know, I was caught up in, this is what I need to look professional. I would have saved a lot more money if I would have had the understanding that I have nowadays. And then that professionalism doesn't come from the things you have. It comes from the trust that you build with people. I spent my first year networking. I did come in there with the idea of, let me try to get referrals. Let me try to get business. And it wasn't until a little later where I was like, no, it's not about me. When I go networking, I need to actually build relationships and see how I can help people and see how I can build community and see how I can be helpful to the people of my community. And then things come from that. People trust you. People talk about you. People want to work with you. If you're friends with somebody, let's just say me and you, we have our friendship, and all I keep coming to you every day is, you got something for me? You got something for me? You got something for me? Every day. And you're like, hey, Jasmine, let's go have some coffee. Okay, cool. We're going to have coffee. You got something for me? You would get tired. You would be like, girl. Every time we sit down, you want to know if I got something for you. I'm just trying to hang out. So what we really need to do is have this understanding of, you know, having that friend and just going, I have something for you. I have something I want to talk to you about. I want to know more about you. Tell me about you. You know, I had someone drop me off donuts at the studio just because. I didn't ask for donuts. I wasn't planning on seeing anybody. And she was like, I just wanted to bring you some donuts. And I was like, girl, you know, but if she would have came to my studio, like, you got something for me, I would have like, you know, so it's, and then when you do things for people, they automatically want to reciprocate. Now I want to get her some donuts. Now I want to be like, where you at? So I can bring you something. You know, it's that natural growth of give and take, and you just want to reciprocate, and you just want to love on people, and you want to show them that they're appreciated. You want to show them that they cross your mind every now and then. That's all anybody wants. But people think that when you get a business, you're supposed to go sell, 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 sell. Buy. My business, come to me, attract, and marketing. And it's like, yes, you got to think about the stuff you do, but you got to go with the basics. And the basics is, how do I trust you? Why should I trust you? Why should I even like you? Let's get that first.
Yeah, at the root of it, you're, as a business, you're trying to solve a problem for somebody.
Right.
And I think sometimes we forget that in order to solve a problem for someone, you need to listen more and give more than you're asking for, especially at the beginning when you're trying to establish that relationship with someone. Right. It's all about figuring out, well, what is the best solution I can possibly offer to help them with whatever problem they have. Yeah. Yeah, but yes, a lot of times we forget that is the basis of a sustainable, good business, not the the salesman at all times of the day. I am, in salesman mode, which, because a lot of us know those people. And I mean, do you want to ask that kind of person for like a drink after work? I don't think anybody really wants to hang out with that person. Right. Yeah.
The person that I am now versus the person I was trying to be 6 years ago. I was trying to be this, I'm a professional and I'm a photographer and I can take your pictures and I can do, and I felt Like I had to carry myself a certain way because I'm a business now and I have to go to certain places. I have a business and it's so stuck up. But now people see me how I naturally am. Like, I'm like, girl, I just woke up. I'm really tired, but listen, I am here to do what you need me to do. Or I had this day and I'll tell them a funny story about what's going on. And I'm in a hoodie. I'm not in a like, listen, I love my blazers. I do wear blazers, but I'm sitting here in a hoodie. I just told you about how I was up for 24 hours and I slept all day. And, like just showing up authentically, people just genuinely pick up on that. And I have more clients now than I did when I was trying to be like, ooh, I'm going to brunch. I don't just be you and have fun and come with this idea of I want to build trust. I want to meet people, and the people that decide that they want to trust me, I want to give them the best service possible. Period.
That's a misconception because I think a lot of times you get so ingrained into yourself that you need to focus on your personal brand. What's your personal brand? What's your brand? What's your brand? To the point where we forget like the main purpose of personal brand is to attract the people that you want to attract most of the time. Now, corporate America, I have much different opinions about what personal brand means if you're in like a corporate setting. And usually authenticity does not go over well traditionally in corporate world. But when you're building your own business and the whole reason of building your own business is to do what you want and to be your own boss, like why would you be anything other than who you are?
There.
Yeah. And it's like your personal brand, you can be you. And that is the most amazing brand that you could possibly be because you're attracting the people who understand that and vibe with your vibe. And those are the fun people to work with.
When I finally stopped trying to be what I thought I was supposed to be, and I finally allowed myself to be me, when I changed, like I said, when I started, it was J-Way Photography. I changed the name to Javon Renee Portraits. This is always funny to me because people keep calling me Javon. People think that that's my first name. Javon Renee are my middle names. And they're actually names that I hated. I've never liked my middle names. Part of the reason is when you put the J and the R together, people were thinking I was Jasmine Newton Jr., which is it's like, no, it's a middle initial. It's not Junior. And then I always felt like Javon was like, it sounded like a boy's name. And Renee is after my aunt. And the reason why I have two is there was apparently people were fighting over which name I should get. And my mom was just like, you know what? Forget all y'all. She's just going to get both. So both of y'all can shut up. Like it was that type of thing. So I got Javon from my grandmother. I got Renee from my aunt. And it was me saying, okay, this is me putting myself into my brand. This is me starting to be myself and allowing myself to come forth. I was hiding behind J-Way. Javon Renee is more of an embodiment to me. It also sounded better than Jasmine Newton Portraits. So I wanted it also to sound like a luxury brand. So Javon Renee just really just, okay, Javon Renee, what's that? Like it sounds luxe to me. But it was my way of finally being like, you know what? This is who I am. This is the brand I want to be, push forward. This is who I want to be. I'm not going to I used to like put videos and put like, the piano playing in the background of the videos, that little classical piano. That is so not me. Now, when I put my videos up, there's Beyonce's, Rihanna, it's a little bit of hip hop in there, it's really me and people love it. People are just like, I love it. It's so you. It makes me want to come see you because you seem like such a fun individual. When you really allow yourself to just be authentically you, because that's how you were sent down here, to be authentically you. And don't let the noise cloud that. Just try it. Try it for 6 months. If it doesn't go well, I promise you can go back to the other three. Like, it's not like you can't change back. But just try it and see what happens. For me, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
So my last question is, since I feel like we've kind of tied this all together from the beginning to end, and even it was like everything just came all together, full circle. But what is, the legacy that you most are hoping to leave behind?
I want my portraits to be hanging in as many homes, living rooms, bedrooms, wherever as possible. And that's art that I created that will be enjoyed for generations. I want to have a strong sense of self instilled into my son. I want him to understand that he can be whatever he wants to be. Society will tell him otherwise. But I want him to know he can be whatever he wants to be, do whatever he wants to do. And no one can take that from him, no matter how they feel about him and where he comes from. And I also want to start a school for creatives. And I don't see that happening until I'm, got a lot more graves in my head. But I want to have a school where it's just, anything under the creative umbrella, whether it's painting, music, photography, poetry, potter's wheel, like anything creative you can learn at that school. And it's also a cool place to go and check art out. You can go to an open mic, or there can have an art gallery day. It's just an incredible place to really learn a creative skill, and also have a co-working space there for people who maybe can't afford to have a studio yet, or can't afford to have an office yet. And just go and co-work or rent some photography cameras and do their thing. Like I saw that dream way before I became a photographer. I thought about that my freshman year in high school. And that came about when I had an art class. His name was Mr. Taylor. And I don't know why, but for some reason, he put my name up for a scholarship at this place in St. Louis. That's where I went in high school. I went to high school in St. Louis. I'm originally from Chicago, but I went to high school in St. Louis. And there was a place that was giving out scholarships to just take a free class. And so he put my name up, and I chose to take a potter's wheel class. And it was so great to me. I didn't even know classes like that existed. I didn't know you could do that. I'm a kid from the hood. It's not a lot of things that they show you to do that they don't show you a lot of possibilities in the hood. And so this was just really eye-opening. I was like, they do this? You could just go and just do. Oh my God. Like, I just got so excited about it. So ever since then, it was like, I want to start a school for creatives, and you can just go and learn whatever you need to learn and have support, because a lot of creatives don't have support. They have people saying, oh, that's not a real job. Oh, find a real job. You need to get a real, you're not going to make any money off of that. They need support. So I hope those three things I can leave. And I also want to, I want to become a speaker. So the things that I feel, the things that I've learned, I want to instill that in other people.
I would say for sure, at least the stories that you've told me about your son, he definitely carries that heart of, I can do whatever I've set my mind to. So I definitely already see that, but I love the idea of the Center for Creatives. Because I think also an aspect too of this coming from personal experience of, like, I grew up constantly creating. I went to our arts center all the time, and I have tons of pieces around our house that I did growing up, and I did creative writing, and my creative writing teacher always said that I had an author's name, and she hopes to see me write books as I got older. But because I felt like I had to make money, I had to go into business. So I never got to really stretch my creative side. So to have a place that even if you professionally maybe couldn't do creative things, or you didn't think that you could because people told you couldn't make money at it, but to be able to reinvest in yourself and rediscover those elements of yourself and bring them to light, and maybe do see realistically, no, I could do something with that. That would be amazing. Because I think in adulthood, a lot of us forget about that childhood curiosity and creativeness that a lot of us had, and we decided we had to be serious adults and we couldn't do that kind of stuff.
Right. I mean, when I think about my childhood versus his childhood, it's so vastly different. Like, I had a good childhood. Like, I tell everybody, yeah, I was in the hood, but I mean, it didn't mean like I was a horrible, depressed kid in the hood and all I saw was drive-bys. Like, I mean, there was plenty of good things that I experienced, even in Chicago. But there was, those scary moments. You got gangs a couple of, a few blocks down. You're driving around your neighborhood and you see the graffiti, you see the people selling things on the street. I remember seeing those things as a kid, and I remember thinking, just having this feeling of just like, how can I fix it? How do I make this town better, or town, city? How do I make this neighborhood better? How do I get people off the streets? Like, I used to think about that at 7 years old. How can we clean up the graffiti and clean up the trash in the street? How do I do that? If people are hurting each other, how can I stop them? Maybe I'll go and knock on the gang's doors and tell them to stop hurting people. Like, I used to think about that, but now my son, he don't even know what a gang is. He has a completely different outlook. I had never knew what it's like to live in a house. We were in apartments. He don't know what it's like to live in an apartment. He's always been in a house. Like, there's so many things that are so different. And just watching how that changes the way he thinks about life in general. I don't. and to know that the change was me. The change was we found a way out of the hood, and I really pushed myself. And my son sees me working. He's got a whole different idea of even having a job. His normal idea of having a job is, okay, I can start a business. I can work from home. I don't have to go and get a 9-to-5, He's already trying to figure out how to, like, he's making music. I don't know. He's making music on his computer. He taught himself how to work on pictures. I didn't even show him. Like, it's just crazy to me. It almost brings me to tears because it's just so different than how I came up.
Just that right there is an incredible legacy.
Yeah.
To leave is just through him. And we've talked about like how different it is to grow up with a parent that you see them as, they've run their own business, and how that opens up your perspective of what is possible. Just by having that parent in your life, which is an amazing gift, I think, personally, to have an entrepreneur parent. Coming from one who, my dad is an entrepreneur, so I'm a little biased, but.
I mean, I grew up thinking it was 3 options: work, school, or the military. I didn't know that there was an entrepreneur option.
Like, wait, nobody told me about option D. There's an option D. I would have taken that one.
Because I mean, I took my first option was military. That didn't work out. I didn't have the grades for school. So it felt like work was like, what else am I going to do? I can't do anything else with myself. So customer service, when I was doing that I hated customer service, but it was like, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life until I retire, because that's what you do. You get a job, you work it until you retire, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it would have been nice to know that there was, it would have been nice to know. So he knows that there are other options. He's already told me, I don't want to go to college. And I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm just going to start a business. And he just said it so matter-of-factly, like, I'm just going to start a business, period. Okay.
Yeah. That's so cool. At that age, too. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine, for sharing so much wisdom and so many different facets of not just entrepreneurial life, but just in general, being a human that feels valued. Was very, very impactful. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you for having me. You had some good questions in there. Some of them I was like, ooh, okay. But yes, I enjoyed this.
Good. I tried to at least throw in a few that are a little tricky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good question. Very good question.
Good. Now that you've heard Jasmine's entrepreneur origin story, tune in to our next episode where we cover the extensive journey she went on not long after this episode was recorded. It is a story worth hearing. This episode of She Speaks is brought to you by our amazing partners at First Horizon Bank. She Speaks is produced, edited, and scored by the very talented Travis Tench at Oak Hill Audio. If you loved the episode you just heard and want to support Let Her Speak's mission of elevating real women's stories, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share at Let Her Speak USA. Together, we will make our voices heard.